Can you see us now?
Yeah, I don't know, 12 times to try.
We're trying an entirely different machine. I've decided we're going to try with my laptop.
Yeah, we're going to see what this does.
I don't know about the flipping. Let's see.
No, it's right.
Can you read that?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, they can. All right, so I don't have to flip it. That's
No,
great.
no,
That's good.
No, it's good.
So let's hope this works this
Let's
time.
answer something before it happens again. We think we got it good. We removed the iPad from the problem, and we're using straight Mac. So let's get going there. Sorry, it's taking us to this struggle, but we're off and running.
15 minutes of trial and error. We get there.
That's the technology tax. It always has to be paid. The next thing was consultant planner, how to access and when will it be simpler? For whoever asked that question, I need you to send me an email. What do you mean by simpler? It's the act of being a helper to someone else and looking at the screen just has a bunch of different tools and capabilities. So you access the consultant planner by going up to the top of the screen and clicking on Get Help.
Is that available now? I think
it's available to everybody. Okay. It's been available for a little while. And consultant planner should be there. You click it, and you go into this place where you can look at your ward list and then click a name or send an email to somebody and say, I would like to help you. And they get the email and they say accept on the link. If they do, then their name will show up in the consultant planner. Then you can click on their name and see their tree information. And we're trying to show you good information that will help you as a consultant figure out where to go to help them. It has a planning document where you click to enter in your plan, what I'm going to do. I'm first going to start with a prayer, then I'm going, an agenda. Yeah. And so I think you just need to go read up on the planner, go get some help out there, read up on it, and you'll be fine. It is a busy screen. I mean, it's not for just average user. I mean, it's not for everyday users.
It's really for the family history consultants.
Yeah, anybody can use it. We don't block people. But it's probably for a person that's a little more advanced than a beginner because you're supposed to be a person who's helping other people. Mm-hmm. So you should feel comfortable with the system and stuff. So I think if you're there, then you can pick it up pretty quickly. I'll try to look around and see where some documentation on how it works would be. We're still working on it. This is the first sort of version of the thing we've sent out. We had some beta stuff earlier. Yeah. Now the next one was how many generations do the robots walk to find hints, data problems, and ordinances? And we don't have robots to run around finding ordinances, by the way. But the hints, what we do is we take a copy of every person in the tree, all 1.1 billion, and we throw it into a hinting engine. And then we take all of the records, all of the indexes from all of the records in FamilySearch, we throw them in the same hint engine. And then it runs for several days, and then it figures out who matches what, and then we switch the systems and say, okay, now we've upgraded to the new system with the new records. We have enhanced the hinting, so when you add a person or you edit a person, it will automatically throw it into the hint engine and try to find hints against it. If we get new collections, then right now we get new collections, we have to go through that same process. We have to get all 1.1 billion, throw it in a duplicate machine.
It's like that card matching game.
Yeah.
This is match this one.
We have to create another server. We throw all the data in there and all the collection in there, run it for a while to match it, and then we switch the old one for the new one, and now the system knows all the matches again, all the hints. So it's not trivial, but it's every person in the tree that it matches. Data problems are actually done by the, we're in the process of changing this, but right now they're done by the tree client. That's the interface when you go to the family tree interface. It actually calculates it on the fly, data problems. So it reads data from the back-end database of the tree, and it does this little checks to see, and if it sees something that looks out of whack, it puts up the data problem. Yeah. So that's actually generated every time we read data from the family tree.
Yeah, to clarify, when he says on the fly, it just means very quickly, right? Yeah. If anyone doesn't know that.
It's not pre-calculated, it's analyzed as we're reading it. And
real time, really happening right when you're doing it.
That's right. Ordinances are also... ordinances, because there's lots of ordinances and people want to look at ordinances a lot, we have created what's called a cache. In the computer lingo, that's just basically a set away copy of the current status. And then we if something changes on a person, then we go recalculate that stuff. And so ordinances are actually pre-calculated. They sit in this cache of pre-calculated data, and we refresh it whenever a change happens to the person. So it does there. Now, the one thing about ordinances I want to make people clear is it works great. It's fast. It's super fast this way because it's pre-calculated. And ordinances don't change very much. I mean, once the ordinances are on a person, then those
stuff isn't
it doesn't change.
Ordinance.
Adding a name and a date and a place and doesn't change the ordinances. The only time ordinances change is if you do a merge. Then when you do a merge, we have to move the ordinances to the survivor, and then we have to recalculate. Well, sometimes the act of merging and recalculating takes a little delay. So people have had this experience where they merge, they hurry and look at the ordinance tab, and it doesn't look right because it's missing ordinances, which is probably true. And so you just need to be patient, wait 2 or 3 minutes, refresh the screen. Some say it's been as fast as 45 seconds, but wait a little bit, hit refresh to refresh your screen, and then the ordinances show up. Works every time. So so that's that on the ordinances. The last question I have from previous one was, things for me to go think about or research is, how many hints or data issues does the system show at once? And like I said, it shows them all. So, well, actually, that's not true. The little section on no, it shows them all. So if you're on the person page, it shows you just 2 or 3. But if you click show all at that spot, then it gives you a big full screen, show them all.
So it shows all of them. It just doesn't allow you to preview all of them. It kind of shows you a couple. It'll show you maybe.
Yeah, it shows you a few on the person page, and you have to click show all if you want to see them all, or you could click each hint and resolve it, and then the others will pop in place.
Okay.
So, and then on the, I think it's the same thing as the icon on the person, on the tree.
I think you're right.
So they're all there. It's just you have to do an extra click or so to see them all at once if you want to do that. Okay, I think that's all the stuff I had from a few weeks before.
Okay.
So now we need to start with some question. What does he say there? I can hear and see.
Well, Barbara says, "Great, I can hear and see you."
We're back.
We're back.
We're back to seeing.
We're back in action.
Being heard and seen.
It's good that we got this to work. I think we're just gonna probably huck the iPad in the trash. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Just whatever. I mean, it's not working. So, our first question comes from Jen, who I might make the comment. She mentioned that she submitted this question before, and she
didn't like the answer?
Well, she said, I submitted this question earlier, but it wasn't addressed. So if you don't get to it or didn't get to it and it's on the list, it's just disregard.
We missed it or something?
It's something like that. So okay. I just want to make
sure.
Sorry
about that.
Yeah, we apologize if we didn't miss
looked at every one. Okay.
Okay, so Jen asks, she gives a little scenario here. So let's kind of write out the scenario here. She says, Person 1 has completed ordinances. Person 2 has ordinances as, quote, not available.
Okay.
They get merged,
right.
These two people. Then changes occur, thereby making unmerged no longer available. We then realize it's a mistake. We restore person 2, however, both person 1 and person 2 now have their ordinances as, quote, not available.
That's right.
They say, how is this, or is this how the system is meant to work? She said, I thought the ordinances would go back to how they originally were for P1 and P2 in an unmerge and a restore situation. Any clarification? You good?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
All right, let's see how the whiteboard works with this new. Okay, so here, looks kind of dark, but I guess that's just the way it is, huh?
No. You guys let us know if it's too dark. And
if we're too dark.
We'll make adjustments.
Okay, so here's P1. They said it has ordinances on it, BCIE, so it has the dates and the temple. And here's P2. And P2 has not available. Well, let me just explain for a minute to everybody what not available means. Not available means that there's something about this person. For instance, they are from a sensitive country, or there's some other...
Maybe within the 110-year rule?
No, that would not show it. It's mostly because something's happened, like, for instance, we've talked before where the sex changed on this person. It was a male, and then it was flipped to female, for example. And when it does that, we mark not available because We don't want any ordinances done on it until we review it by an admin and remove those male ordinances that are no longer invalid. Okay, so that's what happens with not available. It's usually the sex has changed and there were ordinances on it in the previous sex.
So it's not that these ordinances aren't available; it's that you're not
showing them.
You're not in the ability to show them.
That's right. There's still ordinances on this person.
Okay.
It just means that we can't show them to you, and you can't reserve them or do anything.
They need to be reviewed by an admin.
They have to be reviewed by an admin.
Okay.
Now, when you merge this over to here, if you recall, if it was an unmerged, then you'd be fine. But if if you edited stuff, then the rule is if you edit things, when you restore, so you're restoring this way down at this point in time, that ordinances do go back and forth, and they still do that. But this little flag, when it came over here, this little flag, this thing got set as not available. That's not applicable. So this gets set not available. That gets set to this P1 because we have to carry that security stuff over because there's ordinances that haven't been examined. So even though this BCI is there, now the not available is covering it up.
So it's that the not available means there's a security concern, and it's not that the data isn't there.
Yeah, that's right. The data's there. It's just because we just can't show it because there's something wrong with it, like it's the wrong gender, it's the wrong whatever. So when you restore, we put all the ordinances do go back. So if this guy had ordinances, P2, they were here, and when you do restore, they go back over here, but the not available flag still stays, just like all of these changes still stay. The problem is you can't remove that thing. That has to be removed by an admin. So what you need to do, if you decide that these two are really not the same person, if you're just restoring so you can get rid of the not available, then that's not appropriate. If they're really the same person, just merge them and then call support and say, I need you to review P1 because it just went not available and I should be able to see the ordinances. Mm. And they'll look at it and then they'll take care of it and then you'll be able to see the ordinances. It doesn't take super long for them to do that. And but if they're really not the same person, then you pull it over there, just call them again and say, or send a case in that says P1, I merged with somebody that had a not available. It's not the same person, so I restored it, but the not available is still there. Could you go remove it? And they'll look at it and remove it for you. Okay, perfect. So that's how that works.
So Jen, we hope that answers your question. Okay, ooh, this is a spicy one. This guy's from Australia.
Okay.
Chris from Australia. That's always exciting when we see people from other countries getting in and participating. It's fun. It's fun for us people who live in boring old Utah.
Right.
It's just plain old Utah. So he actually slimed in and got two questions in here. So his first question is: I know that when I log into my family search tree, that living people are kept private, but will those living people eventually become public? He's concerned that after he dies, his information might still not be visible. Say, I hope that 120 years after my death or birth date, it will become public.
Okay. So for that one, there's two opportunities that can happen to make you inside of your private area become visible. And one is if you're a member of the church and your clerk marks you dead as a member, then we'll go and mark you dead inside a family tree, and then you become visible. If you're not a member of church or your clerk doesn't ever do that, which happens from time to time, but usually that gets caught eventually and they get it worked out. But if you're not a member or the clerk never does anything, then we don't necessarily have it set up right now, but we're planning on implementing. We've got a little while to do it. It doesn't have to be done right away. We plan on, we have a process today that we can run through the entire tree. We can run through all the living and see if their lifespan is greater than 110 years or greater. And if it is, we mark them dead. So we did that in New Family Search when we switched from New Family Search to Family Tree to catch anybody that should be dead and made them dead. And so we'll do that again inside a Family Tree. We've got 100 years to be able to worry about getting it implemented, so I think we're good. But that's our plan, is we'll run this process annually or something where it'll just check, and if we find somebody that's 110 years old and they're still living, we'll mark them dead.
The short answer is that your data will become
we'll take care of it, but it probably won't be for 110 years.
Yeah,
unless a relative can call in and say, we know he had an account, we know he entered stuff, but he's dead, and then they can produce documentation to show that you're deceased.
Okay, perfect. So his next question says, one issue he has is with his own father's record in family tree. He said he was adopted, and through a DNA test, we know that 100% that he was adopted by his paternal grandparents. The problem is that we have 3 sons, and any one could be his father. Descendants of each believe a different person has... I need the other portion of that too. It's plugged into the dad's thing on this table. Thank you. Where was I? The problem is that there were 3 sons. So basically, the paternal grandparents adopted the grandson, and the paternal grandparents had 3 sons, any of which could theoretically be his father. It says descendants of each believe a different son was his father's father. At this stage, I basically have a virtual person with no details linking my father with his grandparents, but he's not put in any other sons. He says, is this okay? Basically, I think if we understand the question right, if we don't...
Better read it again.
Do you get it? I didn't know if you quite caught it.
I got till the last part. He says he has...
Okay, so let's... So, it's his father. It says his father was adopted by his father's grandparents.
Right.
So there's 4 generations there, right?
Oh, his father's grandparents. So his great-grandparents, or his grandparents adopted his father.
Yes. So it says his father's grandparents. So if we're talking from the perspective of Chris, in this case, I believe it'd be his great-grandparents.
Right.
His great-grandparents. Okay.
The father was adopted by their grandparents.
Yes. And basically the generation in between the grandparent and the father. So this guy's father.
That's right.
He doesn't know
which they don't know who he is.
They haven't figured who he is, and they say everyone disputes it and discusses it. They said at this stage, he just has a virtual, basically a filler person with no details, linking in between his father and his grandparents. So basically saying there's a generation there, we don't have the information for him, I don't know who my grandpa is, I don't know which one of them is my grandpa, but I know that my father was adopted by his grandparents.
Yeah, well, I think there's 2 things you can do there. That's okay. By the way, what you did is okay. You could, so I think there's a couple things you could do. Realize that in family tree you can have multiple relationships, and those relationships you can choose which ones are preferred to be seen. So if this is your father, what you did, and this is has a name, it has a first name and a last name. I'll say Rob Jones. And that father, you don't know that father because he's missing. You don't know. So this is unknown father. Can you read that? Yeah, I guess you can. Unknown father there. I'll put a better question mark. And then up here is the grandparents of this man. And Chris is down here.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the father. So it's fine. You have a relationship here, which is fine. You can put this relationship if you want and just put unknown or question mark or whatever. And you can put the relationship to the grandparents. But you can also do the following. You can just make a parent-child relationship between the father and the grandparents. And just put adopted here.
Is there any way that maybe you could do the adoption relationship and have details that say who was adopted by his true paternal grandparents?
Well, you can put notes in the relationship that says it was paternal grandparents.
That way, in case, if they decide to find...
But you can put this relationship here, and then when you look at Rob's page, you'll see Rob. So this is Rob and his spouse. And then over here you'll see parents, and you'll see, a question mark for the father, and then you'll see the grandparents here as their parents. And that's okay too, right? You can do that too. Doesn't look very good. I smashed it too close to the line.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. So if you look at Rob's page, you'd see one section, you see Rob and spouse. and children. And then next to you see father, which is a question mark.
Mm-hmm.
And then mother, if you know that. And then you'll see another set of parents over here that says grandpa and grandma.
Then have like an
and it'll say Rob down here, and then it'll say adopted. So that's what Rob's page would look like.
So you'd have two parent-child relationships.
Two parent-child relationships going this way and going this way. Then there's nothing wrong with that. So that's one way you could do it. I don't think you have to have this part here. Then that part would go away, especially if you don't know the mother and the father.
If you don't know any of
If you don't know anything, I don't know if I'd put that in. I just put grandparents and just put it in that relationship, say the other grandparents. But you could do that. So you were asking, is it okay to do this part right here? And that's fine. You could put in a person with an unknown name or question mark or something as a name. And we call traditionally, I don't care for placeholders where it's just a big old long line of question marks. But in these cases, it's acceptable to do that if you don't know the name of the parents. Yeah. But you know the name of the grandparents.
I think the ideal thing would be to have your father, in this case, Chris, his relationship, and have two parent-child relationships. So if somebody wants to, they can see that your father was adopted by his grandparents.
See, the problem by not doing the second relationship is you can't say that the grandparents adopted him.
Yeah.
Without having that second relationship. So you can't document this. You can't model this adopted relationship without adding a parent-child relationship to the grandparents.
I think that way, so the future generations, as they come along and get interested in FamilySearch or family history, then they can know that, okay, there's someone here. There's supposed to be someone here in between these two. But that they can also know, okay, well then, but he was raised by his grandparents.
Oh, he's adopted.
Or adopted.
It's even more. That's
legally
an official
adopted.
thing. Yeah. Okay.
He wanted to point out, he says he loves the Q&A. He finds it very good and quite humorous.
Yeah.
He says he's not a church member, but he's used the family history libraries for most of the 34 years he's been researching.
Terrific.
And he loves FamilySearch Online.
Great. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Plain Jane, and I don't know if this is really a question we can answer. She says, I need some quotes and pictures I can share with my social media followers.
Quotes and pictures of what?
So that she can share with her media. I'm not sure what she's looking for.
Yeah,
exactly.
you don't need to send me an email to ask me what kind of quotes and pictures you're talking about.
She says she's with the Family History Library as a church service missionary.
Oh, well, you can get a hold of me internally and just send me an email.
He'd be happy to share that with you, I'm sure. Send you something.
Yeah, it depends on what you're asking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. So the next one's from Mary Kay. She says she's sorry, first off, if this has been answered before. So let's see.
All right, we've done a few before repeats.
She says, why do data alerts show up for dates or places that are in the correct format? She says, for example, I got a, quote, missing a standardized birth date alert when the date shows 8 December 1836. I've also seen a missing a standardized death or birthplace when the place name is in the correct format. If I go in, erase the comma, let the drop-down menu populate it, then choose the same data that was already there, the alert goes away. Can you explain why this happens? Yes,
it's because it has nothing to do with the format of the string that you type into the date. It doesn't have anything to do with that.
It has nothing to do with what you actually type in.
That's right. Let me explain and what your correction does. So this is before.
Eons ago?
No, this is before she makes her fix-up to make it go away.
Oh, I thought we were referencing the old FamilySearch.
No, so we said 18 June...
1985.
1960.
60, all right, 1960. It'd be really nice if you could write legibly.
Nah.
Nah? Okay.
So this is birth. So if you look... Okay, so what's going on is there are actually 2 fields for every date and 2 fields for every place.
Okay.
And what's happened is, for some reason, and it may be because it's coming from a third party, because we've had problems where third party people aren't filling in the standardized field, there are actually two fields for the birth date. This is the one you typed in, 18 June 1960. Looks all nice, standard looking.
Very good.
But we're not talking about this field. We're talking about this standardized field, which is the machine's interpretation of that date. Now, this can happen because either when somebody was entering the date, they entered it funky, so it couldn't figure out what it is, or the person went in here and chose no standardization, or it came from third party like Ancestry or some of these other, one of these other places that wrote data to here, partners that have access to our interfaces to allow to write data, synchronize your private tree with the family tree. Some of those were not writing data into here, so it has no standardized date. So the error you're seeing is saying that this field doesn't have any data. And this is the field we use to determine whether it's a match, to find it in the search engine for find. This is the data we use here. We don't use that because it's just a string. Somebody could put in whatever they want. It means more when you're talking about places, and I'll explain that. Now what happens next is what you do. You go in because you're trying to fix this thing. And you go in and you edit the birth. You stick your mouse in there and you go and add a space or something, and then you go to remove it. And when you start typing, it drops down a list.
And tells you.
And the list says, 18 June 1960, whatever, and it may have some others. So now what happens is you go in there and you start to edit the thing. So this is the same. You're editing the birth field, and you start typing, and it pops up a list of dates that match. What it's actually showing here is data out of the standardized database that we think you're trying to type. And then you turn around and you say, and then I select this, and this looks exactly like that. Yes, but because you selected that, we know what standardized date you're wanting. The 18th of June 1960 is some Julian calendar day, I don't know, 14,375 or whatever it is. Well, when you do that, what it does is it fills in this data with what you selected, and it also fills it into the standardized place, the standardized date. So now both fields are filled in. If you pay attention, when you do this, you'll see that this thing will pop up green, and it'll say, here's a standardized date, and it'll look just like that one. Well, that's because you chose it out of the standardized set. Now, you ask, well, why on earth are we doing that? Yeah, it doesn't feel like we should because we all deal in English.
But the computer speaks,
Well, not only that, you say, well, why can't the computer just figure it out? Well, the problem is because, there's things like the 10th year of the reign of the Han Dynasty.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what is that?
It's a historical reference.
Yeah, so what is the Julian calendar for that or whatever?
Yeah.
Or when it's before a certain day, it's Gregorian calculation, more lunar, or it's the Julian calendar. So that's what we're trying to figure out. You'll get a better taste of that if I talk for a minute about places. The same thing happens for places. You can have non-standardized places. And you say, well, why can't you just figure it out? And why don't you just use the same field? Well, let me explain why. If you're on the standards team, imagine this job. Your job is to come to work every day, and I want you to enter every place that has ever existed since the Garden of Eden into this database. Go.
I'd quit.
Yeah, it can't. You work on it every day.
You'd never get done.
8 hours a day. We have one guy that was running that team. Just retired, worked for 30 years, then still they got in most countries. They have the country in a couple of cities. He's got Germany back to pre-1940s. I mean, it's just a lot of data. We buy some, we get some free stuff, we do that kind of stuff, but we add some to our own. So we don't have every place that's ever existed in the planet on this database. But we want you to be able to enter in things. If you've worked with New Family Search or Family Tree, if you did work in the past, our standards information, for instance, didn't have cemeteries, a lot of cemeteries. But we didn't want to lose that information. We wanted you to type in something.
Okay.
So there could be,
We're talking about towns now?
yeah, places.
Okay, well, while we're on that topic, I want to add in, Monique just asked the question related to this. She said, how can we get a place to be standardized for historical place? She said, for instance, a town that was in another country than what it is now. So my example probably would be like Berlin in West Germany or East Germany.
Yeah, just keep typing your thing out that says West Germany, and it should pop up as being part of the list, or fill it in like you want it to be and see what standard is picked. So I'm going to put in some cemetery stuff. So I'll put unknown because it's unknown to the system, and then Utah, whatever, USA. So this is a place that I would type in. Some unknown cemetery that the standard system doesn't know. Well, what the standards will do in this case, we want to keep all of this data so we don't delete it, and the standard would come up with Utah, USA. So we'd use that to match against, and then we find out what, eventually we'll know what this is, and so we'll try to put the cemetery there. Oh. So because we don't know every place, imagine you want to put Smith Settler Farm,
the coordinates or something.
The farm on the east end of some valley.
1400 West.
Yeah, no, has no address. It's just a farm. It was the old farm, said, in Smithfield, Utah. Well, we're not going to have in standardized database the old Smith Farm Plot 5.
Yeah.
So, but we want to know that it's the old Smith Farm Plot 5. We don't want to lose that data. Yeah. So that's why we had to make it 2 separate fields. Okay, what did she ask now?
Well, so the question, I think you kind of answered it in a way. She says, how can we get a place to be standardized for a historical place? So I'm not sure, Monique, if you're with us, you can maybe clarify that question a little bit more.
Yeah, if you want
specific instance?
If you're saying the standard does not exist in the standards catalog,
yeah,
then there's a place on FamilySearch.org. I think it's called FamilySearch.org/research/places. I think that's the thing. We'd have to try it to see if that works. And that URL will take you to actually see all the places that are in this database. So you can start typing in a place, and it'll show you all the information out of the database. It's kind of a neat tool to do some place research. And in that tool, I believe, if there's a missing place or a place that's spelled incorrectly or done incorrectly, you can insert data and you can have it sent to that team, and they'll review it and put it into the database.
Okay, I'm going to put that down for you to look into a little bit.
Yeah, I think we might have posted that before, but fiddle around. I think it's FamilySearch.org/research/places. Let me look real quick. If I can.
So
I just have to go into my browser to see if it's there.
Okay. Well, so Monique, she said county, not country.
Doesn't matter either way.
I didn't read that. Sorry, Monique, that's me. Yeah. The computer's all the way up here, and I'm trying to. My glasses, I'm blind. Maybe getting close there. Maybe eyes aren't so good. But she said she did some of these this week, and there was no standardized place.
Yeah.
So I think what he's saying is
it should at least get the country.
Yeah.
But I think if you go to this place, I think it's /.
So basically, he's saying 2 options. One, you can either find this thing he's looking for.
Yeah, it's called FamilySearch.org/research/places.
Okay, so did you catch that?
So go there. And we'll have Tegan post it or something on that address. You could enter a place name, and it'll show you all the stuff. And I think there's a way for you to request and send an update. I haven't done that. I think it's in the menu somewhere. It has a provide feedback, and in that feedback, you can tell it the place that's missing.
So it's a
FamilySearch/research.
Hold on.
/places.
So I'm not as fast on my phone than I am on a computer.
Okay.
But so basically what he's saying is you can go there. She says there used to be a workaround that we could click outside of the right box and it would standardize automatically, but it isn't working the other day.
Yeah, that should still work. Or tab. You can tab out of the field. It should standardize automatically.
Yeah. I think that
if that's not working, let me know. Yeah. Either call support or send me an email.
Yeah, you can send him an email. And if you'd like to know where his email is, it's on his information.
Ron@FamilySearch.org. Easy to remember.
All right. Okay, so I think that's good. The next one we've got is Barbara. Oh, and Mary Kay, who had the question about the standardization to begin with, says, thanks as always for answering my question.
Sure.
Barbara says, what happens behind the scenes to a temple name once the closest living relative's contact information has been entered into the request form? How long does it take for the name to appear on the temple reserved list?
Usually it doesn't take very long. They're really pretty quick.
What happens on the back end?
What happens? When you fill out the form, what happens is a support case is automatically generated underneath the covers. I don't know if that support case shows up in your cases. It may or may not. I haven't looked. But it'll underneath the table, it'll create a support case, send it to the admins that deal with this particular request. They pull those off, first come, first serve. They're pretty quick. I think it's usually been, I've seen it happen in minutes, but I'm sure it happens at most a day or two. And they look at that material. They can do a little investigate. If you don't fill it all out, or you don't fill it out to their satisfaction, then they'll
kick it back.
They'll send you a reply to this support case, and you'll get an email that says, "Hey, you didn't fill it in enough." But if you fill it in, you give how you're related, you give your explanation, you tell them who you got permission from, and how to contact them. If that all looks in line, they'll go look in the tree and see how it looks like you're related, and look at some stuff just to do a little double check. And if they're good, then they just it only takes them a few seconds to put it into your reservation list.
Mm. So, I guess it depends on how busy they are.
Yeah, it depends on how many, and they get a lot.
Yeah.
Especially in North America, they get, thousands and thousands. So.
A day.
Oh, yeah, every day.
Thousands a day. So it depends on how much they get, and it depends on how accurate your request is. So if you make sure that when you file for one of these, you have all this data beforehand, you put it all in there, it might help speed up your case.
Oh, it certainly will, because they'll just look at it and verify it. And, okay, looks good. Cool.
So, if you get good data, you're going to get good data back.
Now, for instance, my wife, we ran across one of these where there was a baby that was stillborn or died at birth, a couple days after birth, but needs a sealing a parent. Hmm. And it was something we found, and it was near. It was like would be her grandparent kind of level, but all of the closest living relatives were deceased, and so she filled out the form and she told her relationship. This is how I'm related to these people, and everybody, all the children and all the brothers and all the siblings and all the parents and stuff, they're all deceased, and here's and within less than 5 minutes she had the thing back and it was on her reservation list. So
there you go.
It should happen pretty quickly. Be patient, because they do get a lot of them, and they get them from all over the world. But it's a pretty good-sized team. It's not just one missionary. There's several missionaries in Salt Lake. I think that goes to the Salt Lake Tier 3 level.
Library.
They're in the Joe Smith building.
Yeah.
And but they're pretty quick. We tried to optimize that one really well because we knew there'd be a lot of requests. So it's pretty quick if you especially provide accurate and complete information. So.
Okay. Well, David had a good comment. He said people need to know when the county or other government jurisdiction was formed. If the country or county switched, I can't say country, switched or changed, then there are records. He says, however, just because one person has the right dates doesn't mean the records are actually there right now or indexed. He says nothing actually happened automatically back in the day.
That's right.
He says then there's always Oklahoma, Indian Territory, etc.
Yeah, and those kind of things are in there, but there could be ones that are missing.
Yeah, so and I'm sure that there are teams that go around and review these things, and like you said, there's a man that just retired that's been doing it for 30 years. So putting in good data is always a good thing, because then they can review that and add to the standardization. Right. So
we want to automate that a little bit for them. We haven't got to it, but I think we made arrangements that if we see that there's no standard for these, we may send them automatically, but we haven't done that yet. We have to work it out.
Getting there. All right, so Shannon has a question. She says, when will we be able to see the combined totals for our indexing efforts on FamilySearch? She says, right now we can only see the totals for web indexing on that link. Downloaded indexing program only shows what was indexed locally. It would be great to see a combined total for both sides. So I think she's kind of looking for...
You'll have to send that to me, because I don't know. I'll have to go ask the guy who's over that.
Okay, so there you go.
So Shannon. I have to find out. You're asking that you want to know, so you did 10,000 records using the older index system, the download index system, and you've done 1,000 online. Thank you very much for indexing, by the way.
Yeah.
But in your total online, you'd like it to be the sum of the two. You'd like to see 12,000 there instead of 1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Or maybe also, I think maybe part of the question is she's saying maybe not just individual, but as in the world. Do we have a currently running world count for how much we've indexed as a world?
Yeah, I don't know how often they update those pages. It doesn't update quite a bit. I think they only update them periodically.
Okay.
So it doesn't like always adding,
Yeah, it isn't a constantly running total.
No.
Okay.
They update it periodically.
Okay.
But you might be talking stake or ward or something if you're a stake indexing person. So I'll ask him all that. You'll
Okay.
have to remind me.
Yeah, I put that down on the list for you.
Okay, thank you.
So Barbara Payne, who's with us, I believe, or was in the beginning of the video here, she said...
which one? The first one, the second one, the third one? Or the fourth one?
I think it's the fourth one. We're on the fourth one still. And I think she was one of the first people to comment on our newest one saying she could hear us and see us, which is a great news.
Yeah.
But Barbara asks, she has a follow-up question in regards to ordinances again. She says, what if all the ordinances were not completed before the merge, but then some were completed after the merge? What happens to those ordinances? And I'm assuming she's meaning in an instance where maybe you would go back.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
So that was a good question. Barbara says she's still here. Good to have you with us, Barbara. She's probably been with us the whole time through the whole,
I'm sure she has.
4 different videos. She seems like a very devoted watcher.
Okay, so I think this is what I have to try to describe it. Let's see how this works. So here's person 1, and it has ordinance 1 and ordinance 2 on it. This one over here is person 2, and it has ordinance 3 on it. If you can see 3. Can you see 3?
Yeah, I can see 3. You can't see 3?
I can't see it.
Let us know if you can't see the board.
one eye that's close and one eye that's far, and it's right in between the two.
Okay, no,
so
we're good.
Neither eyeball works. Okay, so then here's the merge occurs here, and then after the merge, this stuff here, ordinance 4 is performed. Now, ordinance 4 was performed on P1, right? Because this one is tucked away in an archive. So the system, this ordinance is on P1, and so when you restore, so at this point in time, you restore. With a restore, this goes back the way it was. So ordinance 3 will be on 2. Remember when it was merged, ordinance 3 got put here. When ordinance 4 was done, it got put here. Because that was the person.
Yeah,
that was
the only person.
That was the only person.
When that was done.
And then you do restore, it looks over here and says, well, ordinance 3 was from here. So I take ordinance 3 off, and it goes back over to there.
Okay.
So this is restored, so you get P2 with ordinance 3 on it.
Again, so it doesn't bring number 4 over.
So 4 doesn't come over here. 4 was on this one and stays on that one. This one, what we do, remember, we're not really moving things around. What we're doing is we're deleting. The 3 was always on 2, and all we're doing is we added the 3 here, and then when this thing got restored, we just said, oh, that one has 3. Well, we'll take 3 off of here. We just take off here what we brought over. But everything stays. So or 4 is here. So this is a good case. You could end up looking at weird things like this is the baptism, the confirmation. This was the initiatory, and you do the endowment. Yeah. Now they do a restore. Well, the endowment's now missing.
Or the initiatory.
The initiatory is now missing. So now you'll see baptism, confirmation, initiatory is ready, endowment's done.
Well, that's silly.
It looks weird, but that's what we have to do because this ordinance you said is this person's not the same as this person, so therefore this ordinance belongs to stay on.
Which, by the way, if this is the case, this would also be funky because he hasn't been baptized or confirmed yet.
Yeah, that happened. It happened.
That's why we need you guys, right? That's why we need everyone.
Okay, so I hope that explained it. What you wanted to know.
Yeah, I think it did, and if it didn't, Barbara, you can let us know. Let's see. I think
she'll answer.
She should. She says she's still with us.
Okay.
Let me see here.
She said like, so she probably liked the answer.
Oh, she did?
Is that the bottom one in there?
No, that was saying I can go and like her. I can go like her comment.
Oh, okay.
Jeez, your eyes are really messed up, man.
I can't do it.
We got to get you a magnifying glass. Well, so
is there anything else? What's
there's
next?
none else for
That was
today.
it.
If you want to share something, we've only gone 45
No,
minutes.
well, we only got 2 minutes left.
Okay.
I know we spent a bunch of time in setup. Us technically, and I don't want you to feel
Cheated.
or uncomfortable that Ron Tanner, who's supposed to be doing all this stuff, can't run a computer.
We had problems. What it was is our internet. We kept losing connections, so then the bandwidth would shut down, and then we would drop. And so we ended up using my laptop, and the laptop seems to work perfectly.
Yeah, I think
I don't know,
mom's
something about
probably
the iPad.
mom's due for another iPad though.
Something.
I bought that for a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I thought it was like 2 years ago, man.
It's not very old. It's not very old.
Barbara says, she says, then you have to do the missing one for P1.
That's correct. Now you go back and do the initiatory for P1, and everything's great again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so we'll let.
Hey, first off, thanks for coming. We really appreciate it. Keep telling others. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is I want more people to be able to understand Family Tree. I had a lady who was she wasn't doing it anymore, but she was a family history director for St. Louis, and she was traveling to Utah to visit family, I guess, and she wanted to stop by and ask me a bunch of questions. And I should have told her about this Facebook Live. I didn't do it. I'm going to try to do better. So if you tell people and spread it around, then we get more people to understand, and then the system will just get better. Family Tree will get better, and people will do good things. They were. I had two that I talked to today. One a guy up in Salt Lake, working with him on trying to figure out how to stop bad changes from happening, and that's one of our challenges we have to work on. We'll keep praying and figuring out a way, and I'm confident that we'll figure it out, but it may take a while for us to do that. That's a really hard problem to figure out.
Yep.
And then the other person was about ordinance stuff, and they were struggling to know if they could take the parents of a spouse of a descendant. And the answer is no, you can't. If you go up your tree and you go down, and you can do all that whole family, but if you're going to do the spouse, then you can't go back up because they're not related to you.
I thought you could get a kick out of that. There you go. David Newland, who had a comment earlier, said, thank you so much, long-suffering lead family history consultant and trainer.
Yeah.
There you go. New title. Add that to your resume.
Yeah.
You got that one.
Or maybe he was. But yeah.
Maybe he is. He probably is.
Yeah, he is.
He probably is a long-suffering lead family history consultant.
Yeah.
We got a lot of those around here.
So just please share with everybody and invite them to come to the Facebook Family History Ron. I'm doing this because I want to answer everybody's questions. I want people to feel comfortable with Family Tree. I want to hear suggestions for new features you think you want. And as always, you can tell them, well, if they're not into that, that's fine. They can always send me email, ron@familysearch.org. I offer that email to everybody I talk to, every conference I go to, every presentation I give, I hand that email out because I just want people to get the information and know and get their questions answered so they feel comfortable using the system. So thank you for your time. Thank you for spending your Thursday night or Friday